Hi guys, Elizabeth here. I wanted to make a video about the journals I'm using in 2014. I'm doing something different than I've done before, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I tend to keep two kinds of journals, a writing journal and an art journal. And my writing journal tends to be very private and personal. I do not share that at all. It tends to be things that I kind of work through in my head. I get all the noise in my head out on paper. Lists and things like that go into those. And my art journals tend to be the ones that I tend to share more of. They tend to be more colorful, playing with paints, kind of different. It's personal, but not as private, if that makes sense. So in my writing journals, I tend to use spiral bound books that you pick up at Staples, pretty much any kind of journal that I use for writing. Sometimes they're lined paper, sometimes it's got grid paper, sometimes it's blank. But there tends to be no sketching in that. And I wanted to do something different this year and include more sketches, kind of practicing my sketching and working on my hand-eye dance while I'm sketching in a book that I tend to have with me all the time. I'm using a journal I picked up at Michael's when they go on 40% off, and I think this cost me $3. It's by Artist's Loft. And I believe I saved the tag information just so you could see that here for those of you interested. It's the Artist's Loft sketchbook. It is 110 sheets of 75-pound paper, and this particular book is 5.5 inches by 8 inches. So like I said, it's nice and small and something I carry with me everywhere. And if you read my blog, you'll note that when I first started, I decided to start with a sketch, kind of make it more of a sketch slash writing journal. You will see in my blog, I made notes about how the paper is so thin. I'm used to, when I'm sketching or drawing, doing it in watercolor paper. Granted, it's my cheap watercolor paper, but still, it tends to not show through from the other side. And if you can see, if I bring that up closer, the writing kind of shows through, but I've come to realize that I really like that. It adds a layer of texture that I wasn't anticipating, and it's kind of fun. So in this journal, what I do is I basically use whatever pens I'm writing with. So you'll see I'm kind of about that much through. Whatever pens I'm writing with, and then as I'm sitting around, just, sketch something. Just kind of working on getting I'm waiting to pick up my nephew at the bus stop. There we go, right? So there's a lot of my writings in here with little sketches. I'll just kind of do a quick flip through so you'll see that, there's notes and all kinds of things. And it's got some sketches. So that's kind of what I'm using right now for my writing journal and doing a little bit more sketching. So, writing journal. I also have picked up the bigger 8.5 by 11 size, and I'm really looking forward to doing that in this kind of journal with the sketching. Now you will notice that most of my sketching has been in black and white, and I'm kind of liking that. I've realized that there is something to doing just a black and white sketch. I realize how much color camouflages or covers over issues, and when something is in black and white, I have to actually think about what is it that I'm doing. I also am sketching in pen. I use Pitt pens, just a regular Pilot pen, the ones you get from when you're signing a receipt from somewhere. But I'm kind of liking the Pitt pens as well. But I like the idea of not using pencil. So that's the other thing I'm doing in this book, no pencil whatsoever. I want to see what the mistakes are. And I've come to realize that the more I stay away from a line that I can erase, the more careful I am in terms of putting a line down and thinking about what it is that I'm seeing as opposed to what I think I'm seeing. So that's an example of what I'm doing this year, and there's going to be various sizes of this, but we'll see how that goes. I'm kind of liking it so far. So that's the writing slash sketching journal that I'm keeping. In terms of my art journal, most of you who follow my blog or have looked at other YouTube videos know that I tend to like the 9 by 12 size for my art journals. It's a great size. It works really well. But I wanted to try something a little bit different. If you take a look at my YouTube video, There's a video there on a refillable travel journal, and I found that when I was in Sri Lanka last year, I loved that idea. I loved that the journal is in small pieces or signatures as opposed to one big fat book that I'm carrying around with me. It makes it more unwieldy. So, and I also wanted to try something bigger. So again, Michael's was having a clearance sale. I think buy one, get one 50% off or something like that, or use your coupons. I picked up the Canson paper. It turns out that my cheaper watercolor paper is not available anymore. Go figure. So I'm getting more expensive paper, but this is still on the cheap, way cheap end of the spectrum here. So this is the Canson XL series. It's a cold press paper. There's 30 sheets in this, and it's a bigger size for me, 11 by 15 inches, and it's 140-pound paper. So I gotta tell you, this has got to be the thickest paper that I have ever used for an art journal. I mean, this is sturdy paper, and I am loving it. Okay, so what I'm doing with this is the same thing I've done with my 9 by 12 sheets. I basically take the pages out of these and I fold them in half. And when that happens, I end up with a stack that looks like this. Again, take a look at the journals I made for kids, as well as my refillable travel journal, kind of my full Midori that you'll see on my YouTube channel, and you'll get an idea of how I do this. So in these ones, so this year, this is what I'm using for my art journal, okay? It's going to be these individual pamphlets or signatures that I will then somehow combine together into one big fat book at the end of the year. But while I'm working on each signature, it's just one at a time. Now, the way I did this, again, if you follow my YouTube video or look at my YouTube videos, you know exactly how this is going to go down. Wallpaper samples on the outside covers. I took 5 pieces of the watercolor paper, okay, so there's 5 pieces here. I fold it in half. I stick some wallpaper sample or any covering you really want on the outside. I go ahead and make 3 holes, one kind of in the middle, one kind of an inch from the top and the bottom, but I use it, as always, as though it's got 5 holes. So here's my hole 1, hole 2, hole 3, hole 4, hole 5. And I use a basic blanket or pamphlet stitch. I decided to keep all the knots on the inside this time around. So there you go. Really simple to make. It can be whatever paper you like. So if you like sketching paper or some other kind of paper, or you could actually change the papers, right? You could have that, you know, you've got some watercolor paper in here, some sketching or drawing paper, some grid paper, whatever you want. When you make your own books, really, you can make it however you want, and that's one of the fun things about it. So all of these are kind of available for me to basically start working with. Now, here's the thing that I have found really fascinating while I'm doing this. Because the pamphlets or signatures are all separate, right? While I'm working on a page, I end up working on multiple pages. I don't like using or wasting paint or any of my supplies. I mean, if you're out gessoing a page, you might as well gesso 2 or 3. Or if you are painting, you're always going to have scrap paint left over, and you might as well use it up. So for example, let me show you, while I was doing this page, okay, so this page is basically, I was working on it, I had a whole bunch of leftover paints sitting around. Now, first of all, when I added the background paper, I basically gel mediumed it down to this one. Well, I've got my gel medium out and I've got my, you know, paper out. So here's another signature that I have in a stash. I've made 4 so far. I went ahead and used the gel medium and just stuck down some more paper. Same paper, might as well stick it down, right? So I've got another background just waiting for me and it's ready. Then I've gone ahead and used these stencils. I think they're Tim Holtz, to basically put some stenciling in there. Well, I've got leftover paint on that stencil. Might as well use it up. There it is, right? You'll notice the colors. There's the blue that went into the stencil as well as some of this brownish reddish color. That's what the background ended up looking like. So here's an unfinished page. I added her just the other day, but I come to the page and I go, I have all of this done already. I think I'm going to add a little girl, and then something else is going to happen here. So one of the things I really like about not having all my signatures bound together already is it makes it so much easier to work on multiple pages at the same time with the same supplies. So those are two of the ways that I'm currently journaling this year. I have my writing journal that I've shown you, and I've got the single signature pads of 11 by 15 paper, watercolor paper, folded in half. Okay. The other thing I wanted to try this year was to actually use unbound sheets of paper. Now, I'm not sure why I thought I would do this, but it always seems like a good idea. I see journalers who buy a bound book, a spiral bound book, and take all the pages out and work on them individually. And I thought, maybe I'll try that. So I have these, again, my cheapest watercolor 9 by 12 sheets that I still have in my stash. I took them out and I just started, I'll just show you a couple of them. I just started doing some background work to it. Again, using up leftover paints, just when I have left sticking down things, using it kind of as a way to help protect my other sheets, which gives you nice patterns in the background. Cleaning off my stencils. Let's see, what else? Just cleaning off the leftover paint that's on my brushes so I don't waste them. And here's as far as I have gotten with this stash. I mean, I thought that I was going to basically, I like this actually, this whole idea of sticking maps on paper. So I might do something with that. Here's a perfect example of wiping off a stencil on another sheet of paper as opposed to just wiping it down with a baby wipe and throwing that paint away. I just love how that looks, right? So something's going to happen with this. I just don't know what yet. So another map. So here's the stash that I have of all these single sheets of paper that I've done something to front and back for most of them, but I haven't done anything else with it. I think about, I mean, there's no reason I can't use any one of these as a journal page, right? I mean, just do what I normally do. And then my idea was I would work on each one of these individually and then bind them into a book later. So, just figure out a way to do that, which is easy enough. But it turns out that I really like working in something that's bound. There's something about these loose sheets of paper that just don't work for me, and I don't really understand yet why. I just feel like, well, so what? So why would I do that? Now, again, it's a pure psychological issue, right? There's no difference between this sheet of paper, if you think about it, and that sheet of paper. Right? On any given day, I open up, I decide to do some artwork. There's no reason I couldn't just start working on that sheet. But for some reason, I haven't done it. So anyways, I was thinking that I would be doing something with these sheets. Nothing's happened with them yet. This is working really well for me. These single signature journals are working really well for me. As I said, I've got 4 so far. This one's full already, and I'll probably do a journal flip when I get a moment. But like I said, I'm working in multiple of them at the same time. So, here's an example of using up paint. It's astonishing just how much you can get in terms of having a page ready for you to work on because you've got leftover paint stashed, spread out on other pages. So I've got one filled. I'm working on various of these at various times. Again, I'm not focused on making sure that everything every page is sequential. They're all going to be from this year at some point. And that's where I am right now. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked about, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Take a look at my YouTube video, other videos to see, the ones I was talking about, how I liked using the refillable travel journal for Sri Lanka, and that's what kicked off this idea. And stay tuned for updates in terms of any other thoughts that occur to me as I'm journaling. And if you have other tips that you'd like to share, please feel free to do so. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.